Something in your life right now is happening to you, and you cannot stop it. You have run every angle. It does not care. And somewhere this week you caught yourself negotiating with it, as if reality takes offers. Epictetus, a slave whose leg was shattered by a master and left crooked for life, opened his handbook with the only line that matters here. Of things some are in our power, and others are not. A diagnosis, a layoff with no date on the other side of it, a person who is not going to change. Modern life trained you to believe every problem has a lever, so when you meet one that has no lever, you do not recognize a different category. You just assume you have not pulled hard enough yet. Here is what nobody teaches you about pressure that will not end. The men who survive it are not the toughest men. September 9th, 1965, a Navy pilot named James Stockdale ejects from a burning jet over North Vietnam. He has about 30 seconds in the air before he lands in a village street full of men running toward him. And what he says to himself on the way down is this: I'm leaving the world of technology and entering the world of Epictetus. 7.5 years in the Hanoi prison system. More than a dozen trips through the ropes. 2 years in leg irons, over 4 years in solitary. He came home with the Medal of Honor, having commanded 400 men through walls he was never allowed to see them through. And by his own account, every single man in that prison was broken in the opening weeks. Every one. Toughness was not the variable. What he carried in was a sorting mechanism, one distinction, applied 1,000 times a day, that decided what was allowed to reach him and what was not. It transfers exactly to a hospital waiting room, a bad quarter, a marriage going quiet. 5 moves. The 4th one is the reason the optimists in that prison were the first to die. If you are new here, this channel turns Stoic philosophy into field protocols you can run the same day. Subscribe if that is useful. And tell me in the comments, what is the thing you cannot control and cannot stop thinking about? The pressure. Short pressure you can sprint through. Pressure with no end date does not get sprinted. It gets survived, and nobody taught you the difference. So you do what worked on every solvable problem you have ever had. You pull harder. You refresh the inbox. You rewrite the message 11 times. You research the diagnosis at 1 in the morning. You replay the conversation looking for the sentence that would have changed it. None of it moves the situation an inch, and all of it costs you sleep, focus, and the people standing in front of you. Then the second injury arrives, and it is worse than the first. The longer it lasts, the more it stops feeling like circumstance and starts feeling like a verdict. Not this is hard, I am failing. Because if the lever exists and you cannot find it, the problem must be you. Stockdale walked into the purest version of this. No release date, no court, no mail he could trust. A system built for one purpose, to make him negotiate for relief. Every day, the same offer in 100 forms. Give us something and this stops. And here's the part that transfers without modification. His jailers had almost total power over his body and almost none over his mind. But that border is not automatic. Nobody hands it to you. It has to be drawn deliberately and redrawn every single day, or it moves. Most people never draw it at all. They let the situation decide where it ends, and the situation always gives the same answer. Everywhere. You have been treating uncontrollable pressure like a problem to solve. The Stoics treated it like terrain to be surveyed. Survey first, then spend force only where force lands. The Stoic Rule. Epictetus gives it in the first line of the handbook, and it is the entire engine. Some things are up to you, and some things are not. Stockdale called them files. 2 of them kept apart in his mind at all times. File A, what is up to me? File B, what is not? File B is larger than you want it to be. Your body, your reputation, your title, your bank balance, other people's opinions, decisions, and affection. Whether the treatment works, whether they come back, whether any of it is fair. The Stoics called these externals, and they were blunt about the nature of an external. It was never yours. It was on loan. File A is smaller than you want it to be and stronger than you believe. Your judgment about what happened, what you intend, what you refuse, what you do in the next 10 minutes. The Stoics claim this file cannot be seized. Not by a market, not by a diagnosis, not by an interrogator with a rope. Now the part where philosophy usually stops, and this channel does not. The sword is not a mood. It is a mechanical operation you run on one specific situation, and you run it before you decide anything else. Take the thing you are carrying right now, say it in one sentence, then split that sentence. What in it is an action of yours? File A. What in it is a result, a timeline, a reaction, or another human being? File B. Do this honestly and something uncomfortable shows up. Nearly everything you have been fighting for a week sits in File B. And the one item in File A, the thing actually available to you, you have barely touched because it is smaller and less dramatic than the fight. Epictetus was ruthless about the cost of getting this backwards. Men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things. Not the event, the opinion about the event. And the opinion sits in File A, which means it is the one part of your suffering with your name on the deed. Stockdale had 30 seconds under a parachute canopy to run that sort, and he ran it. The village, the mob, the years ahead. File B, who he intended to be when he landed. File A. They broke his leg in the street, and the line he reached for was this one. Lameness is an impediment to the leg, but not to the will. That is not a comfort, it is a border. Legs are File B, the will is not. The hidden trap. Here is the question the philosophy books skip. Who actually died in there? Stockdale answered it years later, and the answer has been misread ever since. Asked who did not make it out, he told the author, Jim Collins, the optimists, the men who said we will be home by Christmas. Christmas came and went, then Easter, then Christmas again, and they died, he said, of a broken heart. Hear that correctly, because the lesson is not that hope is dangerous. The lesson is that hope with a date attached is not hope. It is a bet. And when the date passes, the bet does not just lose, it takes a piece of your faith with it, and you do not have unlimited pieces. The trap works like this. Under long pressure, your mind tries to end the uncertainty by inventing a finish line. 3 more months, after the next round of interviews. Once this quarter closes, it feels like optimism. It is actually an attempt to drag a File B item, the timeline, into File A by imagining it. You do not get to decide when the pressure ends. Deciding it anyway just schedules your next collapse. Stockdale's own formulation is the most useful sentence in the entire literature of endurance. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. 2 things held at once, and neither one is allowed to soften the other. Unconditional faith with no date on it, and a completely unsentimental look at exactly how bad it is right now. Most people can only hold one. The optimist keeps the faith and refuses the facts, and the facts eventually collect. The cynic keeps the facts and drops the faith, and quietly stops running any protocol at all, because why bother? The trained man holds both, and the two together are what make him hard to kill across years instead of days. So before the moves, kill the deadline, not the hope. The deadline. Then stay with me, because the 5 moves are what fill the space where the deadline used to be. The field protocol. 5 moves. Stockdale ran every one of them under conditions worse than anything you will ever meet. They cost nothing. They require no one's permission, and they run in the same order every time. Move 1. Sort the 2 files. The sort comes first because every other move depends on it, and because under pressure, your mind will not do it on its own. Under pressure, the mind blends everything into one undifferentiated emergency, and an emergency cannot be worked, only panicked at, So make it physical. 60 seconds, one sheet of paper, two columns. Left, what is up to me here? Right, what is not? 3 rules for the sort, and they do the work. Anything containing another person's name goes right. Anything containing a date you do not control goes right. Anything phrased as a wish about the outcome, I need this to work, goes right. What survives on the left is almost always 3 or 4 small verbs. Call him, send it, train, tell the truth tonight. That left column looks disappointing. Good. That is the correct reaction and the entire point. The disappointment you feel looking at 4 small verbs is exactly the size of the energy you have been pouring into the other column. Then the discipline. For the rest of the day, you may only act on the left. Not think about. Everybody thinks about the right column. Act. The right column gets acknowledged, written down, and set down. Epictetus had the reframe for the setting down. Never say about anything, I have lost it, but say I have restored it. It was never yours to lose. It was on loan, and the loan got called. Run the sort once a day for as long as the pressure lasts. Not once ever. The sort decays. New information arrives and your mind quietly slides items from the right column back to the left because the left column feels like power. Resort every morning. Stockdale resorted every time a cell door opened, and when it is at its worst, shrink the window. Not this year, not this month. What is up to me in the next hour? That is the whole move. Move 2. Find the shame under the pain. This is the discovery that makes Stockdale's account worth more than a shelf of motivational books. After all those years, he named the thing that actually brings a man down, and it was not the ropes. The thing that brings down a man is not pain, but shame. Pain, he found, is survivable and even clarifying. What destroyed men in those cells was what they thought about themselves afterward. The confession they signed, the name they gave, the moment they folded. Men came out of interrogation and refused to speak to the prisoner next door. Do not talk to me. I am a traitor. Understand why that matters to you, sitting somewhere with no ropes anywhere near you. Pain sits in file B, your body, your losses, your circumstances. Shame sits in file A. Shame is a judgment you make about yourself, which is exactly why it is the one weapon that reaches all the way in. And it is exactly why it is the one you can disarm. So move 2. In any pressure, stop asking what hurts and start asking what you are ashamed of. They are different, and only one of them is steering your behavior. The layoff hurts. What you are ashamed of is telling your family. The illness hurts. What you are ashamed of is needing help. The breakup hurts. What you are ashamed of is having been chosen against. Name it in a plain sentence, out loud or on paper. Naming does something specific and mechanical. It converts a mood you are drowning inside into an object you are looking at. An object can be judged, and the judgment is almost always the same. This is a bad situation, not a moral failure, and I have been sentencing myself for both. Marched at gunpoint toward interrogation, Stockdale whispered a chant to himself. 4 words on a loop. Control fear, control guilt. Not eliminate, control. He treated his emotions as equipment he was responsible for operating. That is the standard. Find the shame, name it out loud, and refuse it the authority to grade you. Move 3. Write the orders before the pressure. Stockdale was the senior officer in that prison, which made 400 men's conduct his problem. Standing policy, name, rank, serial number, nothing else, was useless and he knew it. It would not survive the torture room. Orders nobody can obey do not protect anyone. They just add shame when they break. So he threw out the book and wrote his own. His words, "We here under the gun are the experts. We are the masters of our fate." What came out was an acronym a man could hold on to while hurting. Back us. Do not bow in public. Stay off the air. Admit no crimes. Never kiss them goodbye. And us, which they read as unity over self. Look at the engineering in that, because it is the transferable part. Every rule is a specific, refusable action. File A. Not stay strong, which is a mood. Not do not break, which is a lie, because everyone breaks. The rules told a man precisely where the line sat, so that everything past the line, everything they eventually forced out of him, cost him no self-respect. He could be taken to the line, submit beyond it, and still be a man who had obeyed his orders. Your version: decide your non-negotiables while you are calm, in writing, before the pressure gets around to asking. 3 or 4, no more, each one an action you can refuse or perform. I do not lie about the numbers. I do not take this out on my family. I do not drink on weeknights while this lasts. I answer the hard message within a day. Then the discipline that makes the list real. You only get graded on the list you wrote. Everything else, the outcome, the timeline, whether it was enough, is File B, and File B is not admissible evidence about your character. A list written in peacetime is what stands between a hard year and a shameful one, because it defines in advance what failing would actually mean. Move 4. Hold the facts and the faith apart. This is the paradox from earlier, converted into a procedure you run in 2 separate places. First, the brutal facts. Once a week, in writing, describe the situation with no softening and no forecasting. Not things are picking up. How many months of runway? How many messages with no reply? What the doctor actually said in his words, not your translation of them. Most people never do this and believe the avoidance is protecting them. It is not. Undefined dread is heavier than a defined disaster, because the mind fills every unknown with something worse than the truth, and it does that work at 3 in the morning on a loop. Second, the faith, and it has exactly one rule. No dates. I will come through this. Aloud, permanently, unconditionally. I will come through this by March. Banned. The moment you attach a date, you have handed a File B item the keys to your morale, and the calendar always collects. Run them apart. Facts on paper, weekly, with numbers. Faith is a standing position, unscheduled. Let them run together and you get delusion or despair. Held apart, you get the thing that actually endures. A man who knows precisely how bad it is and is not going anywhere. There is a Stoic line that does the same work. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. That is not surrender. Surrender stops acting. This stops arguing with what has already happened, so that every unit of force you have left is available for what has not happened yet. Men with no release date lived on exactly this split. Christmas is File B. Whether you are still yourself when it passes is File A. Move 5. Keep the unity. Here is the finding almost nobody quotes. Years later, one of Stockdale's own men studied what erodes a person faster over the long run: torture or isolation. The answer was isolation. Men with heavy torture and under 2 years alone said the torture was the trump card. Men with more than 2 years alone said the opposite. Keep even a very strong-willed man by himself long enough, and he starts looking for a friend. Any friend, including the one holding the keys. That is the mechanism the prison was built on, and modern pressure runs it on you for free. Trouble makes people withdraw. You stop answering, you cancel. You decide you will come back around when you have some good news to report. And every week alone makes the shame heavier and the sorting worse, because there is nobody there to tell you that your right column is not your fault. The prisoner's answer was a code tapped on the walls. An entire clandestine society run through knuckles on concrete with its own laws, customs, and rank, built for no reason except that being connected was survival. And Stockdale's first rule of it was that no man negotiated for himself, only for all. Unity over self. So move 5 is the least philosophical and most decisive move in the protocol. While the pressure lasts, you increase contact, not performance, contact. One person who gets the unedited version. A standing weekly call you do not cancel on your worst week, and especially not on your worst week. And you take the other end of it too, because being useful to somebody else is the fastest known cure for feeling like a case. Isolation does not announce itself. It arrives as reasonable sounding scheduling, one skipped call at a time. Watch for it and break it deliberately the way they broke it. Knock on the wall. The protocol in the field. Tuesday morning, the company restructures and your role is gone. Severance to the end of the quarter, and after that, nothing certain. Impact. Your mind sprints. What did I miss? Who made the call? Was it the March project? Should I phone him tonight? Move 1, 60 seconds, 2 columns. Right. The decision, the market, whether it was fair, how long this takes, who calls back. Left, 4 verbs. Update the material. Contact 9 people this week. Keep training. Tell your wife tonight, straight. Move 2, that evening, before the story gets long. What actually hurts is the money. What you are ashamed of is being a man who got cut. Named out loud in one sentence, to one person, it does not disappear. It stops steering. And you notice you had been planning to hide this for 2 weeks, and that plan was built entirely out of shame. Move 3, the same night, while you are still calm. 4 rules on paper. I make contact daily. I do not lie about my situation. I do not take this out on the house. I keep the gym. That is the list. Everything outside it is not mine to grade. Move 4, Sunday. Brutal facts in writing. 11 weeks of severance, 4 months of savings, and in this market the search runs 5 to 9 months. Written down, the number is heavy and finite, which is a completely different animal from the 3 a.m. version, which was infinite. Then the faith with no date attached. I will work again, and I will be worth hiring when it happens. Move 5 runs across the whole thing. Thursday call with the friend who gets the unedited version. Kept on the week you have nothing to report, especially that week. 2 calls a month with a former colleague who is also out. Not networking, wall tapping. 14 weeks later, a job lands and it is slightly better than the one that ended. But that is file B, and it is not the point. The point is the man who took the call. He is not the man who got cut 14 weeks earlier. The sorting held, the shame never took root, the orders survived contact, and nobody in that house had to live beside a stranger for 4 months. Why it works. Every move does the same job from a different angle. Each one moves your effort out of file B and into file A, where effort actually converts into something. The sort shows you where the border sits. Naming the shame removes the only weapon that reaches past it. Orders written in peacetime decide in advance what failing would mean, so the situation cannot redefine it later. Facts and faith held apart remove the deadline, which is what turns endurance into a series of collapses. Unity removes isolation, which is what beats strong people over long timescales. Now notice what none of it requires. It does not require the situation to improve. It does not require anyone to be fair, to come back, or to admit anything. Every strategy that needs the world to cooperate hands your stability to a variable you do not own. This protocol is built exclusively out of things nobody can confiscate, and that is precisely why it held in the worst place a human being can be put, and why it holds in a quiet kitchen at 2 in the morning. There is also a second-order effect the Stoics understood. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind converts and changes every hindrance to its activity into an aid. That what obstructs the road ends up helping you along it. That is not a slogan about suffering being good for you. It is a mechanical claim. An obstacle that will not move becomes the thing you train against. Stockdale went into that prison a pilot and came out the man 400 people had organized their conduct around. The pressure did not build that. The protocol he ran inside the pressure did. That is the difference between surviving a thing and being made by it. The field test. Take the pressure you are actually carrying, the one you thought of in the first 30 seconds of this video. Run these 7 tonight. 1. In one sentence, what is the situation? 2. Left column, what is up to me? Verbs only. 3. Right column, what is not? Be honest about how full it is. 4. What hurts? And separately, what am I ashamed of? 5. What are my 3 rules while this lasts? 6. What are the brutal facts in writing, with numbers? 7. Who is the person I have stopped calling? Answer all 7 and the situation has not changed by an inch. You have. That is the trade the Stoics were offering the whole time. The command gained. Untrained, uncontrollable pressure runs you. You fight file B, you lose, you take the loss as a verdict on your character, and you go quiet. Trained, the same pressure arrives at a man who has already drawn his borders. Slower to panic, impossible to shame, still working the small list while everyone around him argues with the weather, still calling his people on the bad weeks. That is the Stoic lesson that went into Hanoi under a parachute and came home 7.5 years later. Not that pain does not matter. That pain was never the thing that decides you. When Stockdale finally got a note passed to him after years of isolation, printed on a scrap of paper toweling, with a rat dropping for ink, by a man in another cell who could not risk signing it, it was the last verse of a poem. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. That is the whole doctrine, in a prison, in the dark, from a man who had nothing left to give except the message. What they do is not up to you. What you do is up to you. Drop that line in the comments if the pressure you are carrying just got a protocol, and tell me which move you are running tonight. Subscribe for practical Stoic protocols for modern pressure. This is the Stoic Field Manual. Ancient wisdom for modern pressure. The next one to watch is, when they disrespect you, do this. 5 Stoic moves. The same sorting mechanism, aimed at people instead of circumstances. It is on screen now. Command is quiet. Practice it.